myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot see.
Good morning, all. Welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's a while since I've done a live Q&A. Tends to be about Newcastle United, but of course, other things do go on in my life, and some people do enjoy asking us questions about whether it's the acting, whether it's the promoting, events, etc., or the darker side of YouTube. I'm sure there'll be people out there who want to ask all kinds of questions. I can't guarantee I'll answer them, but I will do my best. Also give me opinions on all things Newcastle United as well. Cracking show last night, I've got to say. The Three Amigos last night is, I know it's most people on this channel's favourite show, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Great to be with George Mitchell on the screen, alongside myself, Keith, Mitch, of course, and Steve a little bit later on. But George and Neil going through a really hard time at the minute after losing Marjorie. And we all send our love and best wishes. We've all done that. But it was just lovely for George to come on and have that, to have that Friday night with us. And I think, the offer will go again next week if George is up for it. It was a thoroughly enjoyable show. 2 hours passes very quickly on a Friday night in the company of good friends, that's for certain. Wow, what a week it's been as a Newcastle fan. Unbelievable, Jeff, is what they say on Soccer Saturday. But going from the lows of the FA Cup exit last Saturday, where, as you all know on this channel, I've been really angry about it and frustrated. 8 changes and just essentially chucking the cup away is the way I looked at it. But then to the highs of Tuesday night, and Newcastle United get into the first League Cup semi-final since 1976, the first semi-final in any cup competition since 2005, and just the euphoria of the evening, and big Dan Burn, a Geordie lad from Blythe, scoring his first goal in the Gallagher end, and just an amazing occasion, topped off by war flags, wonderful display, everyone bringing their scarves. It was just it was like a very special occasion for everyone to be there. Obviously, other news in the Newcastle United world this week is just transfer window. Everyone's hoping and to see some kind of movement, but there's been no news. Is no news good news? No ins, no outs, and Eddie Howe again playing down the whole transfer window. In his press conferences, more or less saying we're keeping an eye on the market. If something comes along which we can afford, we'll go for it. But in essence, it's a difficult window, and from our perspective, we go with what we've got. Asked about players going out this week, he more or less said, well, I don't think the squad is overloaded with quantity or quality. And as far as he's concerned, he doesn't see anybody going. He doesn't want to let anybody go in this window. So yeah, it's been a great week and a bad week, and that roller coaster ride at Newcastle United goes on. Of course, yesterday, the tie against Southampton, our semi-final tie in the League Cup, has been announced. It's going to be the away leg, of course, which is great news. Usually for people in the League Cup, the away leg's first, 24th of January this month, so coming thick and fast. Southampton away, 8 o'clock, live on Sky. And then Tuesday, the 31st of January, the home tie the following week, 8 o'clock on Sky as well. For those of you interested in the other semi-final, of course, that will take place on the 25th, with Notts Forest at home first against Manchester United, 8 o'clock on Sky. And then Wednesday, the 1st of February, Manchester United versus Nottingham Forest on Sky. Only thing that's a bit of a nightmare for me on that one is essentially that Forest didn't get the draw the right way around. I think had that been Manchester United visiting the City Ground, at the end of the tie, it would have been a lot different. But hey, from our perspective, we got the draw the right way around. So we're all happy. It would be typical Newcastle, of course, to go out at this stage and get beaten off Southampton. and Manchester United to get knocked out of Forest, and we've got a Forest Southampton Cup final. But maybe our ducks are all aligning and in the right row and in the right order this time. It could be great. Let's see what happens. Any questions? Get them out there and put them in the chat. Anybody wants any questions or wants to bring up any points about Newcastle United, then feel free to do so, and I will get to them. I'm going to run the ads, and we'll let the chat build up. A big thank you to all our sponsors, as always. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, and our website skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensaries, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to make an order, give them a call on 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to Blowhole Breweries, you can get a selection of beers, and the cans are in the design of the old Newcastle United entertainers strips. Blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Melly's Carpets and Beds, laying our reputation, one recommendation at a time. The best quality around at the cheapest prices. Melly's Beds and Carpets.co.uk. Email sales@mellysbedsandcarpets.co.uk or give Melly a call on 01670 632 216. And thanks to United Group Travel Limited, UK Coach Holidays in Morpeth, 01670 362 460 or mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls and looking after you on your tour. Some great deals coming up there. Get yourself onto the website to check them out. Thanks also to Media Arts, who do all of our videos and help us with the technological side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, then hit the subscribe button below. Hit the thumb up, which is the like button, which does us a big favour with the algorithm, and click share. Share it to Newcastle United Facebook groups or Twitter accounts or your own social media to help our community grow. And if you want to join the channel, hit the join button, and for as little as $1.99 a month, you can get some members-only videos and chances to win some fantastic prizes. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Don't forget as well that we do events through NUFC Matters, and this one is the next event coming up, Friday the 24th of February, an evening with Newcastle United legend Steve Howie. Friday the 24th of February, Tyneside Irish Centre, and tickets are available at £50 from newcastlelegends.com. If you also go onto Voucher and search for the event, you can pick up a bargain on there. Don't forget, we also support the food bank on this channel. www.nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you can find the Matchday Bucket. You can make a virtual donation to the Matchday Bucket 365 days of the year to keep helping the food bank in Newcastle. Okay, very quiet this morning. Not very often this happens, so I will push the events that we've announced. Meet and greet with Warren Barton is imminent. Friday, January the 27th, 7:30 until 9 o'clock. And that is at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Warren is flying into the UK on a bit of a whistle-top visit, and tickets are £10 for that. He will be signing, having photographs, and he'll be doing a little bit of a talk, taking questions. Tickets are a tenner. All proceeds from that are going to the food bank. And this one has sold out, which we announced last night, the event with Nobby Solano down at the Surf Cafe on the 9th of February. But don't fear if you missed out on that one, because there is another event with Nobby Solano at the Tyneside Irish Centre on Saturday, the 25th of March. Entry only for this one, £15. Entry plus a signed print, £20. you can get your tickets for that one from NUFC Matters. Okay, questions starting to come in. Big Billy says, morning, Steve. I'm just getting a big Scottish breakfast in me, then heading to the pub to watch the Manchester derby. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's a big, big game today, of course, in the Premier League. And morning, Tom. He says, who would you like to win today between Manchester City and Manchester United? Tom, I think a draw would be the best result today in that game for us personally, for obvious reasons, because Newcastle United have got an extra day of training and don't play till tomorrow. Of course, play Fulham, who are in 6th place. But from our perspective, it's a draw would be a cracking result. And I think, Manchester City, I think we'll be living in dreamland. I think that we could win the Premier League this season, albeit we're only 4 points behind Manchester City, with Man City, of course, having a game in hand. But yeah, I mean, Manchester United are on our coattails at the minute. Of course, they will go above us with a point today. But if Newcastle were to beat Fulham, we would then go 2 points clear of them. So I genuinely feel a draw would be the best result for us today. Because City then go, of course, 5 points ahead of us. But they'll only have that one game. And if we can win tomorrow, that's a gap that we can claw back. We have to keep Manchester United behind us. I think if we're, it's about the top 4, isn't it? So yeah, I think a draw would be the best result for us. John, morning, mate. Thanks for sticking that tweet out, mate. Saw that earlier on. Yeah, bit of controversy on the NUFC Matters Twitter about T-shirts. John kindly came on board with NUFC Matters right at the start of the start of the show. He produces the merchandise. 2 seconds, I'll just have a cuppa. He produces the merchandise, the T-shirts, etc., and donates a hell of a lot of time and effort to putting those T-shirts out there. Now, obviously, we sell T-shirts as well. And T-shirts are sold not just by us, sold by other organisations, sold by other shops across the Newcastle United fan base, and sold on a thing called the internet, which was invented many years ago. And I'm afraid, unless someone copyrights the design, then anybody can do what they want. And essentially, John does that, and does it for the massive benefit of the food bank on a regular basis. So the criticism I saw levelled at me in particular, I think was a bit unjust, because I have nothing to do with the T-shirts. I don't do anything with them. So thanks for that, John. I think you cleared it up nicely. Of course, you will always get protagonists and people who are against us and want to say this and want to say that. Sticks and stones will break my bones and words will never hurt me and all that. But it's, it just needed to be cleared up. So I appreciate you putting that out there, mate. And I appreciate more the time and effort that you put in to doing all of that. And, for a good cause on a regular basis. So well done. Morning, Ray. Thanks, Ray, again last night. Honestly, you make a donation on a Friday night. I've noticed that on a regular basis, and it means a lot. And it was great to meet you the other week as well. So thanks for that. A draw and Spurs beating Arsenal tomorrow would be great, John. I agree, mate. That would be the best all round, wouldn't it? Spurs getting a result against Arsenal would be great. But again, I wouldn't be adverse to another draw. It could be one of those weekends where Arsenal and Spurs draw, Man United and Man City draw, and Newcastle and Fulham draw, and it all stands still. And depending on what happens with Liverpool against Brighton, and I mean, let's face it, the way Brighton are playing, that could be another defeat for Liverpool. Nothing could happen there, and other than Brighton leapfrogging Liverpool, and just edging in behind Fulham, wouldn't that be strange to see? Liverpool and Chelsea, 8th and 10th respectively at the end of play today. You could never have imagined, could you? The Brighton, Brentford, Fulham will all be up there, and Newcastle. It's this season really is turning everyone's heads, and it's a very exciting season. It has to be said. And just looking at the bottom of the table, I mean, Southampton, they're not cut adrift. They're on 12 points. Wolves, of course, sitting there on 14 points, and Everton on 15 points. And then you've got West Ham on 15, Bournemouth on 16, Forest on 17, Leeds on 17, Leicester on 17. So, between bottom place and 13th, you're talking 5 points. That's what separates them. I mean, the relegation battle is crazy, absolutely crazy. Then you've got a little cushion. Palace have got that little cushion of 22 points. They've got 5 points cushion, sitting in 12th. But it's bonkers, and they're on 22 points, and Chelsea's on 10th on 25. So it's a wide open league. It's a lot more entertaining than it has been for a long time. Morning, Les. Hope you're well. I'm just having my morning cup. Aaron thought I would come and do a live Q&A this morning. Good to see the chat building up nicely. Big Billy, how Steve Leicester done it? Stay positive, mate. Yeah, I mean that's it, mate. To be honest, I mean Leicester did win the Premier League and then went on to win the FA Cup. Yeah, it's just taking a bit of getting used to. Billy is a Newcastle fan because we had 14 years of Mike Ashley, and that's the thing that you all hark back to, And I was sitting in the ground on Tuesday at half time, just thinking, well, that's it. We're going to get knocked out. And then we're just going to have the league to play for. And I guess you have got to be positive, Billy. You have got to be positive. It's like the Scottish League, mate. I mean, I was disappointed that Rangers didn't get the result last week. They should have got the result. Was it last week or the week before? But they should have got the result. But the draw really wasn't any good to Rangers. Mr. Anderson, good morning. I hope you're well. Ray says, just a thought. Do you think the club will be thinking about moulding Trippier as a future manager to follow on from Howe? Great question. Trippier is hands-on now. There is, no doubt about that. He is somebody who essentially, was brought in, as a player, but as a captain. But I think he could be. I really, really do. I think back to those days in the Liverpool 80s era with a boot room promoting from within. It's not a bad thing to do. Yeah, I mean, hey, Trippier would have the respect, wouldn't he? He would have the respect in the dressing room. And I think that's the reason that, the team is performing as well as it is, because you have Eddie Howe and his coaching staff. You have, a great coaching staff, a great backroom staff. But you have a great leader on the pitch, and from what I can gather, Dan Burn and Chris Wood are both the same in that dressing room, both leaders in the dressing room. People who are, well respected and vital parts of that team. And I think every successful team has that players committee who go out and do things, and you'll have daft fines and stuff like that. And there's some real characters in that dressing room, and it, not necessarily the people that you think it's going to be. But yeah, I think moulding Trippier as a future manager to follow on from Howe is a possibility, Ray. I think the way that the owners now are running the club is a lot different to the way, say, Man City's owners ran the club when they came in, and other people. I think there will be a couple of changes. I think there'll be changes in the boardroom moving forward. I think eventually PIF will want full control. I will be surprised if in, let's say, 5 or 6 years' time that the current board are the same. I think you will see people come and go. It's part of life of football. You would imagine that Dan Ashworth and Darren Eales will be there long term, but will Amanda still be there? Will Meerdad still be there? Will the Rubens still be involved? You would like to think so. Will there still be shareholders? Will PIF take it on solely? I mean, you would imagine that's what they would want to do, right? But yeah, I think lots of things will change. I'll be very surprised if Trippier doesn't retire here, and if he doesn't go on to be part of the coaching staff, though. I would be very surprised if that's what he wants to do, of course. But yeah, it's a great question, Ray, and I mean that's my answer. That's my feeling. I don't know what people's feelings are in the chat. Julie, good morning. I hope you are fit and well. And I love this. She goes, remember, folks, if in doubt, blame Steve Wraith. Remember that, doing the rounds on socials. Very true, Jules. Yeah, if you can't find anybody else to blame, then yeah, blame Steve Wraith. that's the way it's always been, unfortunately, when I'm not to blame at all. Roger, morning. Hope you're well, mate. Hope your life is good. I hope you have a good weekend. David John Cook, he says, bit late. Good to be back on. Thanks for showing my League Cup photo and asking Malcolm my question. I love it when people send in things to any of the shows. But when it's something to do with Malcolm and John, it's even better because, you know, they've generally they've got a story about it, haven't they? They've got a story which goes on and on. It would take about 10 or 15 minutes, but it brings back so many memories for them in particular. But I know for you, the viewers as well. I mean, that's a hell of an autograph book, isn't it? That you've got there. But for those of you who didn't see it, it was on Thursday night show, and it was a cricket game at Linz Cricket Club. No cameras, of course, in those days. And I mean, I look back to my time in the director's box when I was a kid in the 80s, and I would have had photographs now of me with Jackie Milburn and Joe Harvey, etc. But didn't have them in them days, did we, David? But yeah, I mean, you've got the memories, and nobody can take those memories away from you, mate. Absolutely fantastic. John says the smaller teams who are doing well, their teams operate as a unit with teamwork, not based around 1 or 2 star players like the past. Yeah, that's a good point, John. You think back to, you know, some of the teams, you know, of days gone by that have outperformed maybe the bigger teams like Southampton with Letizia. You know, people who stayed at the club for 1 year. You could probably put Spurs in that category to a degree with a couple of the players that they've had over the years as well. You know, I mean, you know, Chrissy Waddle, Tavi Ginola, they maybe had 1 or 2 star players, but didn't have a really great team. But yeah, I fully agree, mate. Yeah, and Newcastle operate well as a unit, don't they? They've got that wonderful team ethic, and you know, the fight for each other on and off the ball. You know, they don't get bullied. Newcastle United now, which, you know, previous teams over the years have been bullied, you know, too much. And yeah, I think you're right. Oh, Les, that's kind. All the better for catching this, Steve. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I mean, you know, sometimes it's nice just to come on and chat and have a chat with the people in the chat. You know, those of you as well who are members. I mean, I've been giving away Steve Howie tickets this week. I'll do another one a little bit later today. So if you're a member of the channel, if you've actually joined on the YouTube community, I'm giving away 2 tickets for the Steve Howie talking up until the talking itself. I think we've given away about 10 tickets now, John. So that's it's just giving you something back. People who are committing to the actual channel. We do something for the people who joined the cult membership, of course, the one-off payment. But I just thought it was right. There's a lot of you. I think there's about 90 of you now who are actually channel members. And I just thought, you know, what have I ever given them? So we're giving you something back. We're giving the opportunity to win these Steve Howie tickets. But yes, John, I think I forgot to put the clue up last night as well for our actual members. So what I might do is I might get that up. Might get that up today if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. I might do a little review of that this week so people have got it, and then I'll remind people on Friday. 2 seconds, bear with us. So yeah, I did forget something last night. So this was the clue for those of you who are cult members. This is your first clue. 1st of the 4th, 1957. 1st of the 4th, 1957. I'll keep that in, and I'll do a shout out for that on each of the shows coming up. Tom says, would we sign Trossard with him wanting to leave Brighton? Well, look, Eddie Howe's not saying anything about transfers at all. And he was asked about ins and outs yesterday, Tom, as I mentioned at the start of the show. And very, very little is going to happen if you listen to what he said yesterday. But he also says that we are monitoring the market, monitoring the situation. And from our perspective, if there's a deal to be done, we'll do it at the right price. And again, he emphasizes it's got to be the right kind of person coming to the club. The biggest connection, or biggest 2 connections with Trossard, of course, are Big Dan Burn and Dan Ashworth. And if there can be a deal done with Brighton and Trossard fancies a chances of coming to St James's Park, you would imagine that Newcastle would be in the driving seat in this window if there was a deal to be done, because of the fact that, you know, both Dan Burn and Ashworth can sell Trossard the dream. And let's face it, people sitting at home who play for other football clubs must stick Sky on when Newcastle are playing, or BBC or ITV, whichever channel they pop up on Amazon, and go, I'd love to be part of that. And yeah, I think Trossard is still a possibility. That's not through any rumours or anything I've heard. It's a gut instinct, Tom. But I still think Trossard's a possibility. I think it would be a wonderful addition. That hat-trick he scored against Liverpool stands out, of course, but he would be a wonderful addition, and I think he would fit the remit. And I mean, you've got to look at what Brighton have done. If there's a blueprint, and I don't like saying you should follow this blueprint, you should follow that blueprint, but the blueprint is Brighton, isn't it? I mean, look at the players that have left Brighton, and look at the players they've got playing now, and look at their league position. They are still performing, still getting results, and some great players coming through. And ultimately, that's what Newcastle want to be like. They want to have an academy. They want to have the youngsters coming through, some who will be homegrown and some who they'll be purchasing, like the likes of Gareth Bale. That's what they want. And we've got the person who did that for England, developed the England side of things and developed Brighton in Dan Ashworth. We couldn't have a better person. And from a commercial point of view, we've made a great signing in Darren Eales. So we've got everything we need to progress in the first phase. And from my perspective, Trossard would be a great signing, Tom. I'd love to see him at Newcastle. Of course, you want to see big names. I'd love to see Harry Kane at Newcastle. I think he would fit Newcastle's remit. We can't go and buy Harry Kane at the minute. Can we buy him in the summer? Possibly. Is it somebody Eddie Howe would like to work with? I think so. Can we afford him? It depends, and a lot of it will depend on the commercial revenue that we bring in. The financial fair play situation is something which I've said to you before on the show. I don't understand it. I'm sure most of you out there don't understand it. You get a basic understanding, but you couldn't say, well, X, Y, and Z could happen, and this is what, like, you cannot do it. You know what I mean? Because teams like Chelsea are making a farce of financial fair play. You're looking at that going, well, how are they able to do that? And how are they able to sign this player and that player? So, from our perspective, all we know is that our commercial intake hasn't been good enough over the last 14 years. And that is why we're behind everybody else. But how much we can spend, when we can spend it, it's still a bit of an unknown, I think, to most of us. And, a lot of people out there just guess. Ray Burrow says, one thing I've noticed this season is teams like us, Brighton, Brentford, etc., are no longer willing to just defend against the so-called big teams and are going for it. It's a good point, Ray. And I think it's the right way to go about things. And I think that basically ties in as well with some of these teams going through, a bad time. And I do think financial fair play has affected some of them as well, to the degree where they haven't been able to go out and splash the cash as well as they would hope. And the fact that there's another big team, i.e. Newcastle, who are an attractive option for signing players. And I think, I just think essentially, a lot of the other teams are just going for it, and it's a delight to watch. That's what I mean. It's more of a level playing field now. And whereas I've just read the league table out earlier on, whereas in the past it was, you had your top 10 and your bottom 10. And then it changed, and you had like a top, a middle, and a bottom tier. Different sets of teams that were just willing to sit in that mid-table and tread water. You had your teams always involved in relegation, and you had your teams always challenging for the title. We've gone back to just like a top 10 and a bottom 10. It's that exciting. Anybody in that top 10 can qualify for Europe, and anybody in that bottom 10 could be relegated, and it makes for an entertaining league. Roger says Macintosh Derby or Manchester Derby. That's what he says. Sorry, God almighty, I need to put my glasses on. As much as I think primarily of us, I hate Man U, so I a draw or City win is what he would like to see. Kual got into a good position a couple of times, but didn't get the ball. Maybe an age thing. Will be more vocal with time. I didn't watch the game, so I didn't see how Kual played when he came on. I know he was on the bench. But that's a great place to go and learn your craft. And, it didn't do the likes of Longstaff and that any harm. Many a player has gone up there, learned that trade and come back and performed well. And I think as well, if a player doesn't hit the ground in the Premier League, or get the opportunity to get into the team, it gives them an opportunity, to maybe go back up there because, they know they can play at that level. Tavernier is a prime example. What a player he is for Rangers, but, couldn't do it really it couldn't get into Newcastle's team, couldn't get into the Premier League. I don't think he would do that well in the Premier League, to be perfectly honest, but he's a legend at Rangers, absolute legend. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on him, see what he's like, and hopefully he will do well and get better with each game that he plays. Trippier would make an excellent coach or assistant manager, says David Knight. I agree, mate. I agree. And Nicholas from the Felon was on last night. I meant to get to it, and didn't get to it last night. About Bonner and his his involvement on the whole coaching side. He doesn't get much praise, but I'm sure he does from the manager. Jake W. We'll cover this at the start of the show. Do you have anything to say about the T-shirt you are selling for the food bank being a direct rip-off of a local business's T-shirt? I covered it at the start of the show, and you need to have a look at that on NUFC Matters Twitter. From my perspective, mate, I've said what I've got to say about it. And anything that's sold for the food bank, which is a benefit for the food bank, is fine. But anyone can make a T-shirt. The back page does a hell of a lot of T-shirts, which are replicas of other people's work. But anything that's been raised for the food bank, I think is a good thing. And I want to say to John, well done to John on doing these T-shirts. I think what we should get really from Steve Hasty, maybe, and the guys from the food bank is how much John has actually helped raise for the food bank since 2020. It would be nice to know a total. So maybe that's something I will chase my friend Steve Hasty up on to see whether we can get that. Appreciate we will evolve, but we'll never forget all those involved from the beginning. Les, you are right. John says, unfortunately for Steve, sometimes the blame should be aimed at me. Yes, John. Maybe you can tell Jake W that. Jules, sadly going to have to give back to Steve our tickets. Dave can't get the Friday off work. Really tried, but no budget in his work. Also, it'll be Wembley weekend. Really wanted to come up too. No problem, Jules. That's fine. I'm sure we'll have plenty of people who will be willing to take us. Yeah, watch from the start. This has been addressed. If you're just here to troll, enjoy. Thanks, John, for jumping in on that. David says, blame Steve Wraith. Well, your part in us getting new owners isn't a bad thing to be blamed for. Forever grateful to all, regardless of your modesty. Thank you, David. Yeah, listen, happy days. Masturbator. It's really quite simple. Great name, by the way. And nobody's reached out regards taking these designs, food bank or not. We will progress with legal matters if you don't remove the designs. Okay, well, you can speak to John about that. It's something for me to pass on to John, which I did this morning. And as I can see, John has put that into the chat. I am simply the person who promotes and facilitates. I don't facilitate these things, so speak to John. Lots of comments in the chat about that, so I'll leave you to deal with that. Trossard and Neves, says Roger. Yeah, Neves. Yeah, I would think that would be another good sign. But I don't think we'll make massive inroads in this transfer market. Could be a possible one for the summer. But it will be interesting. Let's see what happens. Steve says, just a note, there's no profit from T-shirts sold, goes to a great cause, the food bank. Thank you, Steve, for that. Craig Hope, who is usually quite right with the stuff that he says, Craig Hope said we have an interest in Ruben Neves, which if he said it, you pay attention to it. You do pay attention to it. I think essentially that could be a possibility. David says Chelsea average income per head per game is £1,800. Their income help. Rather have more sensible management than gung ho. Again, I agree. The whole, the whole financial fair play thing, as I said, is something which I am very unaware of, as in the facts. And I think you need somebody who knows what they're talking about to speak about it. So it's why I rarely comment on financial fair play, other than to say that it exists. I know that the lads on the Amigos often laugh at this, but I think the reason they laugh is because you've got Chelsea who essentially and Everton who've gone and done other things. But I keep saying their commercial revenue has always been better than ours over the last 14 years. So they're always going to have more chance of buying buying those things. Financial fair play is in the same category as Bigfoot. It's a myth. That's a good way of describing it. Wonky donkey. David Knight says Chelsea's debt was written off so they can actually spend about 500 million on players without being in breach. I don't like it, to be honest, because it's not fair on other teams. And Tom Dixon says, with the championship being so tight, who would you like to see come up? Good question, Tom. Let me have a look, because I've got to be honest, other than Sunderland and Middlesbrough, I'm not 100% sure who are in the positions where, but here we go, looking at the table. So Burnley's top, 56 points. Sheffield United second on 51 points. Blackburn third on 42 points. Watford on 40 points. Then you've got Borough on 50 points, 39 points, in fifth. And Millwall sixth, 39 points. Luton 7th, 39, and Sunderland at 8th on 38. Sunderland have played a game more than a couple of the teams above them. Okay, well, I'd love to see Burnley come up because ultimately they're a lovely set of fans. I was down at Burnley on the last day of the season when they got relegated, and it was hard. It was hard to watch because I was with the Burnley fans as well. I got invited into the corporate section by a couple of my mates. So I'd like to see Burnley win the league. But that's a great top three for away trips. Burnley, Sheffield United, and Blackburn are all three trips, which would be fantastic for Newcastle. If Borough came up as well, there's another one. And I don't think Sunderland will come up. I think they'll fall away. But hey, those three teams would be fantastic. Burnley, Sheffield United, and Blackburn for me, Tom. Be absolutely great, mate. Ray, you've had to depart. Take care, mate. I hope you have a good day. Paul Gallant, good morning. I hope you are well, mate. Great to see you in the chat as usual, mate. You've been a bit of a miss. I hope things are okay after the death in your family, mate. It's it is difficult. And Mitch is going through it. I'm still up and down, of course, about my mum, but it never goes away, mate. It does hang on you. Steve, great question. Something again we didn't discuss last night. I think when we get to the final, this is a time to discuss it, of course. And I do think we've got more than enough to beat Southampton over 2 legs. But do you think the club could have big screens up for the cup if we get to the final? Probably charge £10 and donate it to the food bank. Thoughts? I would imagine there's going to be something happen. There'll be a lot of people who will try and capitalize on this potential final. We've seen over the years, at the Centre for Life, for example, where we've done talk-ins pre-match, big arenas being developed. And I think because of the demand for tickets will surpass the amount of tickets we'll get, going to be a lot of disappointed people. So yes, I think there will be pop-up places to watch the game. I'm not sure whether the club will do it, but I think Times Square will be I would be very surprised if somebody hasn't already got that earmarked for that weekend. I would be very surprised. But yeah, let's see what happens with that. And I think a donation and money to the food bank would be absolutely fantastic. Les says, I was in the Leazes End when they beamed back Liverpool versus Newcastle. The atmosphere was cracking. Do you remember as well? They used to do it at the old Odeon in Newcastle. I mean, it's not there now, the cinema, but they used to, basically put the matches on the screens. It was absolutely fantastic to see. And from my perspective, I think, again, I guess it comes down to copyright and stuff like that. And you've got to pay, for, screening the likes of Sky now. It depends where the game's on. But yeah, I think it'll be fantastic. I think it's a great idea. And, fans deserve the opportunity to be able to see the game and be in a crowd. So I think there'll be a lot of that. I think there'll be a lot. Times Square would be great, like where they had the England games. Yeah, Tom, it's a great venue. And of course, I think there's the place on the quay side, used to be Sea Nightclub, the Riverside, is it? which you know they've done similar things where people can go and sit outside and watch the games. So I'm sure there'll be other places who come up with ideas and put stuff out there. I think the big question is tickets. I mean, what do you guys think in the chat? What is the fairest way to distribute tickets for the cup for a cup final if we get to it? There is obviously the loyalty scheme in place at Newcastle where people have to have X amount of points to basically go to games, and let's say you only get 32,000 tickets for the game. When you've got 40,000 season ticket holders, there's 8,000 people who are going to be left disappointed. So, who do those tickets go to? That's the big question. I mean, in previous cup finals, we've been quite lucky. We've always managed to get our tickets. We've had season tickets at the club since my first season ticket was 1989, and my brothers were 1991. So, we've had our season tickets without a break since then. So we've been lucky in that respect that we had tickets. We got tickets for the Charity Shield. We got tickets for the 98-99 Cup finals and for the semi-final against Chelsea. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. Will it be based on tickets bought for games? So, for example, if you bought tickets for the other Carabao Cup rounds, will that be taken into consideration ahead of somebody else? It remains to be seen. One thing's for certain, they're not going to be able to please everybody. And, that's the problem. And you're just looking at away tickets now. At the last shout, I'm just looking now, Bournemouth away, the season ticket holder sale is still at 200 points. Now, that will come down. I don't think there's a massive amount of tickets left, but that will come down probably to about 190. And, there's going to be a lot of people who won't have anywhere near that amount of points. So, you can imagine what it's going to be like for Southampton. Now, I'm not sure if it's the same as the FA Cup, where you have to have 25% allocation for away fans. But if it isn't, then you're probably only going to get in the region of 3,000 tickets for that game. And I would imagine that the points are going to start at 200 again. So it's going to be the same people again who probably get tickets for that. But yeah, we will wait and see. Let's get back into the chat. David Knight says, Steve, what's going on with St. Maximin? What do you think his long-term future is? I'm not sure his personality fits with the squad. I've said this on the show on more than one occasion, David. I don't think ASM will be a Newcastle United player at the start of next season. I do feel that we'll need to get the best out of him between now and May. Eddie Howe's made it quite obvious that he doesn't want to let players go. However, he did say yesterday that if there was things can happen left field, you could get a bid in for a player which might be able facilitate another deal. And because of the financial fair play and the fact we can't go out and spend daft money in this window, let's say someone came in for a bit of 40 to 50 million for ASM, I think Newcastle would be tempted as long as they could bring another player in to replace him. I don't think he'll stay, and there's definitely something not right. I pointed this out on Wednesday after the Tuesday night game where my brother was in pre-match and, he watched the lads train and do the warm-ups, and ASM was late out for that. But then at half-time, I found this really bizarre. He came out as the lads were doing their drills at half-time on the pitch. ASM came out 5 minutes later and started doing his own runs across the halfway line, backwards and forwards, on his own, which usually means that the person's coming on. And he then went and joined the other players for about 5 minutes, and then all went back down to the dressing room. And for me personally, I thought, oh, he must be coming on. Didn't come on till 10 minutes before the end. I just found it really strange. There is something going on with ASM. The club are probably going to keep it in-house. They will keep it in-house. But I'm sure it will all come out in the wash. It's always better to watch the match with other fans rather than at home. Steve, you're right. I think Borough up for a close away game and a win. Yeah, I'd love to see. I would like to see Borough come up. I've got to be honest. I do like Steve Gibson as a chairman. He put his money where his mouth is on more than one occasion, and I do like him. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for sharing. David Knight says, I think for the tickets, half of them should go to season ticket holders, the rest to anyone else. Seems the fairest way. I don't think they'll do that, David. I think season ticket holders will get first dabs. And then I think it'll be people who have managed to get tickets for the cup games. I think that's the way it will be. On tickets, Steve, do you think the whole system needs looking at? David, so difficult. I think as well when you start talking tickets, it creates a bit of an us and them thing. So my season ticket, as I say, I've had a season ticket since '89. I started in the Milburn D paddock. I moved to the Gallagher end and then moved to the West stand. But I've had that unbroken, that season ticket. So, you know, for me personally, as well, I've got good loyalty points for the away games that I've been to. Would I feel aggrieved if they changed it? Yes, because I've done the miles, and I would feel gutted if suddenly they just said, right, well, we're scrapping that and we're starting again, because it just means it was all for nothing in a lot of ways. Although I enjoyed it and had a good time and did this and did that. I think they would need to have some kind of way of rewarding those people who've got X amount of points. You've got 20 points on your, if you've got 20 points on your season ticket, then you're going to feel aggrieved if you lose them. It's such a difficult thing. I'm glad it's not me sorting it out. It's going to have to be Darren Eales, and I wish him all the best with it. But ultimately, probably does need looking at. But tell me a fair way, Dave. Tell me a fair way. Steve Middlemas says, for me, Steve, season ticket holders who've gone to cup games have priority, but also those who haven't should be like everyone else in the sale of cup tickets. That's fair in my opinion. It's a good point, Steve. It's a good point. I've always balked at the fact that when you buy a cup ticket, you don't get a loyalty point either. A home ticket, that is. You only get them for away tickets. You don't get it for a home ticket. And of course, Newcastle have got this member system as well, haven't they? Which again, the member scheme, where was that people without season tickets? That was difficult. Jules says, fairest way is to increase number of the clubs by limiting the corporate greed VIP seats that always end up on empty on camera. But we all know that will never happen, sadly. Great point, Jules. I mean, they do give tickets away to those kind of people. All I know is they sell very fast, and with 100k plus trying, it will be tough to get tickets. Very true, Kenny. Very true indeed. Remember the days when there were tokens on the programme? Season tickets, priority, obvious starting point, but never satisfy everyone. Yeah, David, I was talking to somebody in the gym also called David the other day, and he was talking about the League Cup in '76, and he had all 30 programmes up until the semi-final, and you needed 30 tokens to get your cup final ticket, so he got his. So yeah, it's one that I remember that. John Askew says, remember the 1999, 0.66% of the stadium red and white, 34% black and white. What can we do to avoid a repeat if it's the same final? It was a disgrace, and we cannot allow it to happen again. It's funny, John, I must have selective memory, because I cannot remember that. I cannot remember that there was that many, but maybe a lot of the corporates were Man United, those freebies. Paul Gallant says, thanks for the shout out, Steve. Appreciate it. You are correct. Since Mum left it, it's been hard. I came up last weekend to pick up a car that was not where I was meant to pick it up. Big wind up from a troll. Oh, dear me, Paul. Sorry to hear that. Honestly, mate, it's crazy, mate. It's, this internet is a joke. I tell you what I'm seeing a lot of on the timeline, slightly changing subject, is people robbing people for tickets. I think Shambles Travel Amanda went down to Sheffield Wednesday, got down there and was scammed on 6 tickets. So the six people who got our bus got down there and there was no tickets. It's more and more common, to the point now, unfortunately, because I use my social media to try and help people if there's somebody missing, or there's somebody needs a charity pushing or whatever. Somebody tags us in something, I'll help them out. And I've had a couple this season where people have said, I'm looking for 2 tickets, and then such and such has said, oh, I've got 2 tickets, and then it turns out it's a scammer. And I've got a whole host of posts underneath going, this is a scammer, blah, 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 blah. This happened to me. Here's a screenshot. I just stopped doing it. It's a pity, but you just can't afford to take the risk, because otherwise you're complicit in, having somebody ripped off. But sorry to hear that. Paul, Tom Dixon says, if Newcastle win or lose the League Cup, how will it work out for teams to get into Europe? Depends on where people have finished in the league. Tom, if we're still fourth, it's not going to matter, or third, it's not going to matter. But it usually relies on who's won the cup. So if one team wins the League Cup and the FA Cup and finishes in a European position, it's obviously going to open it up for others, Tom. That's how it works. I'm already anxious about about success of getting Southampton home tickets for the semi. Yeah, Roger, it's pointless stressing out, mate, until we know exactly what's going to happen, mate. It's not good, is it? It's not good. I see we've got a scammer in the chat as well. Not so local hero. Thanks, mate. Yeah, this whole thief business is absolutely ludicrous. I did speak to John about it this morning, and John has put his own statement out. And again, just going over old ground. I have nothing to do with the t-shirts. I'll promote them on the show to help raise money for the food bank, and that's it. So John is dealing with that, I'm sure, as we speak. And I'm a little bit behind in the chat because obviously I'm talking. David John Cook says ASM says the right thing on social media, but doesn't with the team. Too self-absorbed rather than the team player. Yeah, you see, this is the problem with social media, isn't it? And you say that ASM says the right thing on social media, but is it ASM running his social media? Is it his agent? That's the thing, isn't it? We don't know who is running the social media. Tottenham want Maximin. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that, Tom. I've heard that Tottenham were keen in the summer to take him. But it's not something that Eddie Howe wanted to do. I guess he probably thought he could change him and get a better performance out of him. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a team like Tottenham. We've got a habit of selling the likes of Ginola there, Chris Waddle, Gaza, of course. I'm a season ticket holder, but because my dad sorts it, that's linked to his email and not mine. So I have another ticket and account for cup games to enable me to take my children, says Dave. Well, that's a good way to do it. John says it's a sign of the times when a player of Maxi's standing is on the fringes of the team. I like him, but not sure he quite fits at the moment. And Roger says, I do fear for tomorrow if the starts over GS7. I don't think Joe Linton will start tomorrow, Roger. I really don't. I just think personally that, I'm not sure whether his head will be right. I'm not sure whether Eddie Howe will want to do that. I'm sure it'll be discussed at the highest level, but I'll be surprised if GS7 starts tomorrow. I think, and I'll be surprised if the SM starts, to be honest. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. For 10 years, when I could, I did 500 miles for every home game. Today, would I be considered a tourist fan? Wow, David, it's an interesting question, mate. But I don't think you would be, mate, to be honest. I've seen this fallout of people on Twitter and, you're not a real fan and, this day tripper and this, that and the other. But, mate, you did the miles, mate. Nobody could ever accuse you of being that, I don't think. John says, if J7 is left out, is that punishing the fans as well? I hope he plays. Look, I mean, Eddie Howe made the decision. It's his decision. He said that yesterday at the press conference. I'll make the right decision for the team. Joe Linton will be mortified and remorseful, and I'm sure that at some point he will address the players and speak to the players, and they'll keep it in house, John. I've said this, and that's what we should all do. We don't know the facts. I've heard a lot of rumors. I pick up bits and bobs from people which I wouldn't share on a platform. But from my perspective, I genuinely feel that Eddie Howe will make the right decision. So yeah, 100% he will. Steve Middlemas says, I can also remember going to the match, no season tickets, paying at the turnstiles for years. Steve, me too. That's how I started off. 100%. It's one of those things. It's the good old days, as we probably called them. I know we look through rose tinted spectacles, but yeah, £1.50 I used to pay to get into the Gallagher End. Tom says, just been looking at the Man United fixtures and they have some hard games coming up. Yeah, and we've got a decent decent run in the next 5 or 6 games. We really could capitalize on that, and things could look a lot different in 6 weeks' time. Jules says, Saturday morning chats are normally very chilled, not used to so much excitement. Yeah, thanks to everybody in the the chat, the moderators for doing that job. It's unfortunate. Like I don't see everything that goes out on the NUFC Matters Twitter account. I've got to be perfectly honest. And as I say, we've already addressed it on the show this morning. I'll leave it to John to deal with these people, and whatever he decides, he gets my blessing. Anyone hoping for Man City and Brighton wins this afternoon? Top 4 chances boosted. I mean, we discussed it right at the start of the program, John. You mustn't have heard, but I think Man City, Man United draw would be good for me. I genuinely feel that would be a good draw, and I think if Brighton, I think draws across the board could be a possibility. When you look at the fixture list today and the way that it's worked out, I genuinely think you could get one of those. You could get one of those weekends where nobody really makes any inroads. Man United, Man City, I think could be a draw. Brighton, Liverpool could be a draw, and I think Newcastle versus Fulham could be a draw. And you're looking at that thinking, well, we all stand still. It'll be interesting, mate. It's a hell of a weekend, the way that it's panned out. John just says, yes, please. He would love that. We often make the journey up knowing we don't have tickets, but we enjoy catching up with friends we've made on here. Just being in the city, soaking up the atmosphere is great. Julie, we love seeing you too. It's great to see the pair of you when you're up here. And look forward to your next journey up. Good morning, Kevin. I hope everything is okay in the US of A with you, mate. John says, when I started going in 1974, it was 30 pence on the old Leazes End. Fantastic atmospheres. Wow. 30 pence. Steve Middlemas says, only thing that will solve going to matches is 150,000 stadium with all the trimmings. Dear me, out, Steve. 150,000, really? I think we'll get an extension, and I think that's something that they'll do sooner rather than later. I think we will see Newcastle's attendance get up to maybe 59,000. I think would struggle to fill 80,000. If I'm being perfectly honest, unless we started winning things every year. But I certainly feel, 60,000 seater stadium or just under will be the next stage, and I can see them extending on the Gallagher end sooner rather than later, and that would be great for everybody. For me, it was shillings and pence at the turnstile. Les, I bet you remember the old red flag going up as well, which George Mitchell talks about on a regular basis, or the peanut seller on the at the side of the pitch. Tom says, I think he might start Jacob Murphy tomorrow. He's been playing well. Tom, he loves Jacob Murphy as well, doesn't he? So yeah, I think Murphy could play, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think if anybody's expecting Joe Linton to play, I'd be surprised. Back in the day, says David, attendance has varied drastically depending on opponents and form. Not so much these days. I didn't realize until those were the days. Yeah, it's a bit of an insight, isn't it, when George does that? What's a shilling, Les? Says Roger, you cheeky. Donald Bain says, morning, Steve. Morning, chatters. Morning, Donald. I hope you're well. David Knight says, Sydney would definitely get top 4, so we want them to win today against the scum. And can't buy a Fredo for 30 pence these days, says Dave. You are right. 150,000 super stadium. Don't know. I mean, it would be great. I just genuinely do not think would ever sell it. You know what I mean? I don't think we'd sell it out. Even with day trippers and stuff. Remember having the threepenny bits? Yeah, it gets used in a different way. That Steve these days. Yeah, well done, mods. Been brilliant today. It's a pity that it's had to come to that today. Les says peanut seller for sure. Got hit plenty times. It's great to see the guy who was dressed in black and white as well, with the top hat and tails he used to go around. That probably was the peanut seller. The Queen loved Jimmy like he loved her, says Matty. Jules says, thanks to all who've joined this morning. Have a great weekend. Here's the 3 points tomorrow. John says, the peanut seller more accurate than half of them on the pitch. 5 pence a bag. See Manu are signing the Dutch Chris Wood. Yeah, that's a strange signing, isn't it? Really, really strange. Okay, that is the end of the show. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. It'll be me with the professionals, Mitch, Stu Penman and Ben Jacobs on the show tomorrow. So see you in the morning, bright and early at 10 o'clock. Thanks to all the moderators. Thanks to everybody who's joined us. Thanks for all your questions. Take care. Have a great Saturday, and we will be back tomorrow morning.